Hey, what's up, yo? It's Jonathan Crane. I know it looks like I or this. I know it looks like I have pink eye, but I think that's just because I fell asleep with my contact in yesterday. So yeah, don't worry. Anyway, today I want to talk a bit about the two spin articles that came out this past week. First article was about dubstep basically taking over the United States. Well, it wasn't really taking over, but it basically was stating that right now, obviously in the United States and Canada as well, dubstep, especially brostep, or mainly brostep actually, is huge. It's just beasting, it's in beast mode. And then second article that came out was, I think, more significant. And this article was basically saying that right now there's kind of a electronica revolution. And let me just pull up the cover here. So on the cover we have Skrillex, and it's saying the new rave generation, featuring Skrillex, and then there's some other big electronic artists that have crossed over into the mainstream: Tiesto, Justice, Diplo, and of course Deadmau5. Well, so this is pretty interesting because obviously Skrillex is in huge letters, and then Deadmau5, who I guess some might consider trained Skrillex, is in smaller letters. So pretty interesting there. I'm not going to comment really on Skrillex today. That's kind of a whole other video, whole different debate that I don't want to get into. But first off, I just want to say that I'm not going to try to contest what either article is saying. Obviously, you just have to go to basically any club on the weekend and see that Bro Step obviously is in beast mode right now. It obviously is going huge in North America right now. And I think that we are in a electronica revolution. And I think that this it really is a new rave generation. So at this point, some of the older people or some people might just be thinking, well, what does this mean? You know, electronic music has been going strong for, I would imagine now, probably 30 years, close to 30 years. Obviously, Tiesto, people were talking about him when I was in high school. Daft Punk was a group that was played on Calgary radio, I believe, even back when I was in like junior high. There's raves really got big in the 90s. You had the British rave scene. So what does this mean, new rave generation? Like, isn't this something that's been around now for like 20 years? Well, what I think that they're talking about in this article is that, just to give put it in kind of Calgary terms, if you go to obviously Club OMFG, or if you went to Radio Park when it was still operational, or Culture Saturdays, what you're going to see is that these places were packed to capacity, and even beyond capacity. There'd be lineups outside of people who were like recent high school graduates, people in their late teens, early 20s, who were just going absolutely insane for bro step and hard electro. I think that that's what spin is meaning by this term, new rave generation. It's that now, I guess, the mainstream, or bridge and tunnel, or white middle America, whatever you want word you want to use, now they're starting to come into electronic music. And I think the best description that I've ever heard about this is my friend Wrath, who is a DJ from Toronto. I actually interviewed him about Moonbaton. It's on my blog, theunitcalgary.tumblr.com. I actually interviewed him about Moonbaton, and in this interview, he's saying that electronic music has always been the inspiration for pop music. Pop music has always kind of taken from electronic music and gotten all the credit for it. But now electronic music itself is the pop music, and I think that that's what this new rave generation is. So I'm definitely not trying to come in at this point and say that no, this isn't happening or something. I just want to give my opinions about where I think this new rave generation is going and what's going to become of it. And obviously, in this new rave generation, Bro Step is obviously the main focal point, which is why I believe Skrillex is on the cover and not Deadmau5, who is a legend basically, or Diplo, or Tiesto, or Daft Punk, Justice, any of these guys, why is Skrillex there? I think a lot of attention right now is on Brostep because when this came into North America, this was something completely different that has just taken the whole continent by storm pretty much. Like with Daft Punk, when Daft Punk got big and they were on the radio, at that point house music had already been around for a really long time. Even when Mastercraft and Justice started kind of getting really big with the hipster crowd, at that point you still had, or at that point in the past, you had like Chemical Brothers and Prodigy who kind of brought in that kind of a really fast, frenzied electronic sound. So that was kind of like I would say, a continuation. Dubstep, on the other hand, in North America was something completely new that has just captivated this whole continent. And that's why I think that there's a lot of focus around that right now. So basically, my opinion on this new rave generation, if I could just say it in a short sentence, would be this is the new disco. You know, what happened with disco basically was that disco was not intended for white middle America. And when I use that term, I'm not necessarily talking about white people specifically, like I'm not using it in a racist term. I'm just talking about people that kind of embody that set of values of white middle America. I mean, disco was invented for the blacks and the gays, or the black gay population. It was originally underground, and then what happened was it blew up and it just got too out of hand. I think that that's what happens with a lot of things in our culture. A lot of times when you have something coming along that's really revolutionary, really rebellious, it'll get commodified to the point that it just basically becomes a joke. And that's what happened with disco. You had a lot of corny disco coming out. A lot of companies just jumped on its marketability, its trendiness. It just got blown out of hand, and it imploded basically. And I think that that's what's happening too now with the electronic music and with Brostep in particular. It's just starting to kind of go up and up and up, and at some point it's going to basically it's going to implode on itself. And the reason for this is just because, or just similar to disco. Disco was invented for uh, black gay audiences, and at the end of the day, it was just too black and too gay for middle America. And that's an exact quote from the House documentary on YouTube. And the thing about dubstep is that dubstep was originally intended for the UK underground. Dubstep was intended or invented for kids who grew up listening to things like UK garage, jungle, drum and bass. We go on and on, two step, speed garage, whatever names you want to throw out on right now. It was originally intended and created for that audience. But on the other hand, over here in North America, a lot of the kids here grew up listening to like new metal, or just metal in general, or top 40 stuff on the radio. And I think that that's why North America has really embraced the bro step sound. And the thing too is that all electronic music really requires interpretation. It requires a basically an ear for it. And I really don't think that a lot of kids in North America have an ear for bro step, or for a lot of styles of electronic music. I think a lot of kids really just play stuff that sounds cool, that sounds heavy, but there's no focus on variety. There's no focus on rhythm or anything, and at the end of the day, it just sounds like a wall of noise. So I think that that's what's happening in this new rave generation. It's definitely going to keep going up and up, and I think that it's going to eventually implode on itself. And then at the end of the day, it'll just be all the people who are actually passionate about electronic music, who were here before, who have an ear for it, and who can spot good songs and really give people a strong feeling, that's going to be here. So my prediction is that I think this whole new rave generation probably is going to last for maybe 2 years before it implodes, before it gets too commodified and it just basically turns into Disco 2.0. So that's my opinion with that. I don't know, feel free to post your opinions right now, but yeah, that's my opinion on the two spin articles. All right, peace.